I'm a bit of a reading monster this summer. I've been catching up on a lot of books that I should have read in high school and college, but somehow was able to skirt those requirements. And to be honest, I think I was probably too immature at that age to really appreciate what I would have been reading. Right now, I'm working my way through Walden by Henry David Thoreau. I bring this up because my next set of books is going to be the collection of Hemingway, and that includes For Whom the Bell Tolls, A Farewell to Arms, The Sun Also Rises, and The Old Man and the Sea. And when this arrived, I pulled out Old Man and the Sea and just kind of perused it to get an idea of the type of prose that I'd be reading. You know, I'd never read Hemingway before. So I started skimming this, and before you know it, I'm nearly done with this book. And that means I have to get back to the Henry David Thoreau, and that's pretty heady reading. So Hemingway was one of America's most lauded authors. Hemingway recounted later in his years, though, how his experiences in Italy changed his life and influenced his writing. In World War I, he tried to enlist in the army, but got rejected because of bad eyesight. Now, this is kind of strange because none of his pictures as a child or as a young man showed him wearing glasses. In fact, he didn't show to have glasses until later in life. By that time, they were pretty thick. But anyway, he was undeterred by this and wound up volunteering to drive an ambulance for the Red Cross, where he was stationed in Bassano del Grappa. Aha. There's a hint there in that name. That was on the Italian front at the time, where the Allied forces were fighting the Germans. And one day he was out delivering goodwill supplies to the soldiers in the trenches, chocolate, alcohol, cigarettes, that type of thing. And a mortar shell hit near him. And Hemingway was critically injured, receiving shrapnel all throughout his body, in both of his legs, his back, and his scalp. They performed some emergency surgery on him there on the front, but then shipped him down to Milan for the next 6 months to recuperate. While there, he fell in love with a nurse, but by the time he got back home to Illinois, he got a letter from her saying that she had decided to marry another man. Aww. Now, don't feel too bad for him, because he was definitely lucky in love and marriage. In fact, he was lucky 4 times in marriage, so he did all right. But back to the story, you would think this would have left him with bad memories of Italy, but he spoke about how it cleared away the veneer of immortality and accelerated his maturity, something that he just didn't have in his early 20s and before the war. It's what drove him to write about his experiences, and it provided him with a wealth of material that would eventually become many of his short stories and books. He especially remembered Montegrappa pens. That company was supplying soldiers with the pens they were using to write home, and in fact, Montegrappa continued to send pens to Hemingway his entire life. I am not sure, but the fact that this is olive drab might be kind of a callback to that. There are photos of him writing with Montegrappa pens or sitting with a Montegrappa pen on his desk. Unfortunately, a lot of those photographs are copyrighted still because he died in 1962. And so I can't really afford the royalty rights for those for a YouTube channel for which I don't get paid. But I'm showing you some photos that show him or his desks with pens. Now, later in life, he was known to use a typewriter, but it's really quite possible that one, if not several, of these books that I'm reading was written with a Montegrappa pen. Okay, so the pen that I am reviewing today is a Montegrappa Tarvesium. Tarvesium is the ancient Roman name for the town of Treviso, which is in northern Italy, very close to Bassano del Grappa. This has a fold-out flap, by the way. This is a vintage-inspired pen that currently comes in 3 resins by Turnt Pen Company, based in New York. One is called Paradise Falls, which I believe is the most popular of the 3. Paris and Bloom, and this one here, which is Carson 34, and this one just resonated with me. Turnt Pen Company is headed by Tim Crowe, and if you're not familiar with that name, write it down, because a lot of this year's most interesting pens have been made by resins coming from his workshop, including this Edison Collier in Tim's Stardust resin, a 2025 Goulet Pens exclusive. And I happen to know that you'll see some other exclusive pens coming out with Tim Crowe's resins. And Turnt Pen Company is truly a family-run business. I think this is really an interesting story. Two of his lines are called Carson, as this one is, and Mikey. And those lines are picked out by his sons, Carson and Mikey, respectively, ages 8 and 5. They go down to his workshop. Carson's the taller one on the right, and Mikey's the shorter one on the left. And they pick out the colors. And you can see down towards the bottom of the photo, there are places where they've got mica stacked, and those are where they want to combine two colors. And then there are other colors in front of them that those will be mixed into. They aren't just picking colors off the shelf, they're actually mixing new colors to put together. I think the results are just amazing. And isn't this stunning? Colors that I would never pick to combine. Turquoise, burgundy, purple, silver, all against what I think is a navy base color. The Tarvesium has a classic flat top style with very simple design that I enjoy. Just a silver center band here at the base of the cap and a clip. There's nothing really else going on there. The clip is borrowed from the Elmo 01, which I have here, and it's available on other Montegrappa pens such as the Venetia, the Extra Auto, and the Magnifica. It's firm, but it's springy, and it has that classic roller that many of the Italian pens do. The only branding on the pen is the Montegrappa script on the front, and then in the back it says Made in Italy. It doesn't have any engraving on the body, which the Venetia does, which is interesting because this model is derived from the Venetia. The Tarvesium comes in at $375, but don't let that discourage you because the street price is much lower, around $250. And because Montegrappa is one of those brands that you can often find on sale, especially holidays, for anywhere between 30 and 50% off, you can definitely get some great deals on these. Combining Atlas Stationery's Doorbuster sale on 4th of July week, along with my loyalty points, I got this for about $165. I'll put a link below. That's an affiliate link. It really helps us out if you use those links. When I purchased this pen, they were almost sold out. There were very few nib sizes left available and none in the Paradise Falls color. But I checked right before recording this and they've got more back in stock. Now, this is a special edition / limited edition. It's not numbered or anything like that, but once the resin has run out, there will not be any more of these pens. So come and get them while you can. Additionally, I have a coupon code down below that will give you an extra 10% off at Atlas. At the top of the pen is a medallion sporting the Montegrappa logo, and at the other end of the pen is just a conical taper. The pen smoothly uncaps in 1 and a little more than a quarter turn, revealing a number 6 Jowo steel nib, and it has Montegrappa's signature pattern engraved in it. It's a little dirty right now because I've used this for a little bit of writing, but normally it comes out mirror smooth. The nib comes in 4 sizes between extra fine and broad, and is also available in a 1.1 stub and a 1.5 stub and a grind called Dolce. Dolce is a grind by Gina Solarino, which is very similar to the Esterbrook Journaler grind, but I think made with a medium instead of a broad. Now, Esterbrook, by the way, is a sister company to Montegrappa. They're owned by the same parent company, and I find them to be about the same level of quality and kind of appeal, though one is decidedly more American while the other one is more Italian in styling, and I'll let you guess which one is which. The section is tapered below the thread and slightly flared here at the end. Then there's the silver band, which has exactly 1 coarse thread responsible for that 1 1/4 turn. And above that is a small cylindrical section that smoothly steps to the wider barrel. I really like this design, and it's something that I've experimented with myself in CAD and with my 3D printers, but I couldn't get it right. This is a cartridge converter pen, and it comes with 2 black cartridges, plus a Montegrappa branded Schmidt converter. Thank you, Montegrappa. And are you listening, sailor? By the way, the converter threads into the section, and I prefer these threaded converters because they provide more of a secure fit and a positive indication that they're properly seated. Plus, they don't rattle against the body so much. All right, let's do some measurements, size comparisons, a filling demonstration, and a writing sample. I'll be using Lamy Dark Lilac. This is the 2024 recipe, and using Rhodia Dot Book with 80 GSM paper. Okay, so the writing was very smooth, no scratching at all. Probably a 7 or 8 on a smoothness scale of 1 to 10. As far as feedback was concerned, that could not either be felt or heard. It was very low, maybe a 2 or 3. And this will probably please some people, but for me, I prefer a little more. And this is something I think I can add myself with a little tuning. The ink flow was really generous, not too much, maybe a 7. I will try some other inks, and if they perform about the same, I might adjust the nib to give a little more flow. It's a tiny amount, but I'm going to be tuning the nib for feedback anyway, so I might as well address this too. The grip was comfortable, despite being 2 millimeters narrower than I typically use. I really love the feel of Alumilite resin. It's, for me, second only to cellulose for pens. It's just very pleasant to the touch. Feels like you're touching something high quality. On the other hand, I did find that my fingers had gravitated up towards the threads. This was sort of unconscious, and I think it was probably for me trying to find a secure grip. Now, the threads aren't terribly comfortable. They're not terribly bad either. There's only one thread anyway, but the fact of the matter is I really don't need to be holding my pen up here, and it's something that I think I can train myself to not do with a little practice. All in all, the out-of-box experience is just great. Fill it with ink and you're ready to go. Nothing else is needed. At the price point I paid, I think this is really a steal. One last thing about purchasing this pen, the prices do vary, so it pays to shop around. Well, that's it for me and the Montegrappa Tarvesium. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out. And think about joining the Patreon. You get the same great content a week earlier, ad-free, and it's free to join. And it's where I'm doing all the giveaways from now on. If you're interested in seeing another pen with an Ernest Hemingway tie-in, check out the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If there's no box there yet, I haven't posted it. Otherwise, it's a great writing pen for around $60 that I think a lot of people will really like. Thanks so much for watching. Be well.